Calculate your net worth. Why am I saying this so late? I mean, I have done videos on net worth calculations, right? So if you go back long enough, you will find those things. What am I saying now? I'm saying occasionally, once in a while at least, it is worth calculating your net worth and seeing how you're doing. Maybe you were in class 6 or class 7 when you opened a savings bank account and your father put 1200 rupees into it, and you knew entry by entry what was happening. That 6 months there were no transaction, but some 5% interest or 6% interest. 5% I think is what we had a maximum. So 60 rupees got credited end of the year, or 30 rupees twice, something like that, because you never made any changes in that. There was no movement. Then suddenly one day somebody gave you money and your father or mother said put this in the bank, so you went and deposited, and you were thrilled to see another 66 rupees interest or 62 rupees interest, because one more year had passed, and so that is how it was growing. Unfortunately, by the time you're 45-50, very unlikely that you will have just one savings bank account. You will have savings bank account, you will have mutual fund, you will have equity, you will have debt, you will have real estate, you will have art, you will have painting, and your asset will be huge. Right. So first is to make a distinction between assets which are contributing to your financial growth and those which are for fun. You bought a second house in Khandala, Lonavala, Kodaikanal, whatever. That is not going to contribute too much to your worth, but it is there. It's not that it's not there, but in a distress, that is the most difficult thing to sell. So don't put too much value to it. Maybe that should be taken only at 50% of what you think is the last traded price. Right? If it's a small society, you will know at what last traded price was, and you take a 50% haircut on that, because in a distress you can't get that kind of money. So that is how you should know how to value assets. Your own house in which you're staying, 25% haircut from the figure that you have in your mind, because the mind tends to exaggerate. That is the endowment effect, right? So then make a list of all your assets, your provident fund, your PPF, your life insurance policies, surrender value, money in your children's account, in maybe you started a retirement fund, SIP, that all your mutual funds, your direct equity, your shares, your debentures, all that you tabulate and say, okay, this is all that I have. Don't forget your savings bank account. There could be a balance there. I've already said PF, PPF, all that. You just keep adding. Then you realize that some assets like your golf kit or your cars or your cameras, these are nice assets, fantastic to have. These are for your pleasure. This is not for your net worth. You keep all this out of your net worth. If you have a car loan and your car loan is much bigger than the value of the car, you ignore it. Otherwise, include your car loan in the debt, but don't include your car in the assets. This is very clear. Yes, it is stringent, but it is still very clear, and this is how you should do it. If you bought the second house with a loan, the loan is importantly part of your liability, but the home itself you will take a 50% cut, because it could be a distress sale. So do all this, and then next is look at your liabilities. You have a home loan, you have a car loan, you have a credit card loan, right? You have, so tabulate all that. You have to pay rent, you're behind rent for 2 months. That also becomes your liability, whatever, all that. So assets minus liabilities is your net worth. Now that you have arrived at your net worth figure, first of all, it can be automated. Make sure that all this exercise, I'm sure you would have done it in Excel, make sure it is automated and you have the net worth figure available to you very quickly. If not at a glance, maybe you have to just pick up some figures here and there and arrive at your net worth, because once you are arriving at your net worth regularly, you know that your net worth has to go up. So if you have got extra money, should you repay loans or should you invest, depends on what is the impact it is going to have on your net worth today, 3 years later, 5 years later, or 7 years later. That is something which you have to decide. Immediately it will look like, oh good, my liability has gone down. But if your liability was at 7% and your mutual fund portfolio was growing at 12%, maybe you should have invested that money and you should have paid your EMIs regularly, right? That's what you should have done. But the tendency is to say, oh, I've got too many loans, let me repay a loan. So whatever you choose. So based on all that, you arrive at your net worth and then see how it is. When you're very young, when you're maybe 30, it's okay to be barely positive. But at 45, 50, you can't be barely positive. If you're barely positive at that age, then immediately go and get yourself a term insurance, because you don't know what will happen to your family if you drop dead, right? As I said, ignore all your fun assets, jewelry, that they are again fun assets, and you do not know how much they will get under stress. Then compare it to, if you have already done this exercise earlier, compare it to how it looked 1 year back. Compare it to how it is going to look 2 years later or 3 years later. Taking a haircut on your equity portfolio is still worthwhile for your net worth calculation, simply because market can fall 10%. So make some provision for that and say what happens. Also find out, is the net worth good enough for you to quit your job? If you think your net worth is good enough for you to quit your job and you're 50, 51 years of age, fantastic, great news, because even if you lose your job, you will not be stressed that you have lost your job. That is, you can at least control the stress, right? How does your debt compare to what it was last year? How do your assets compare to what it was last year? Are you happy with the asset allocation, right? All these questions also come into account. If you are slightly growing up children, ask them and be involved with them, so that tomorrow they know how much of it is available for them, how much of it is available for their education or marriage or vacation or things like that. Largely, I find that people don't share enough with their children about their net worth. So if you can afford 20 lakhs for your child's education, say 20 lakhs. If you can afford 2 crores, say 2 crores. Because when you don't say these things, that adds to their stress. Because you have a BMW, you are contemplating buying another BMW or Audi or something like that. You have taken them on vacations to Europe or Australia, and you're now considering a trip to the US, and your son or daughter is doing the research. So you're sending them some signals, but not all the signals. So your net worth really tells you how much you have, how much you can spare for your daughter's education, for your son's education, for their marriage, etc. Better to show it to them, sit and talk, rather than pretend that one day they will know. They will not know, right? And also check whether there is one single share which is taking up too much. You have an ESOP, and out of your net worth of 8 crores, 7 crores is that ESOP, right? That is too badly in favor of one company. I know you don't like to sell the company in which you work simply because you love it. I have nothing against it, but concentration risk is something which you can't afford. In a worst case scenario, take the portfolio that you have, which is very concentrated, sell it off and pay off your loans. That's also possible. Maybe it is suboptimal. Maybe it will get listed tomorrow. Maybe it will get listed at 100 and it open at 300. All these possibilities are there. But when you're lopsided in your valuation, lopsided in your asset allocation, better to book some profits at every point in time and repay the loans, right? Also find out, if you have so many assets, are they well insured? You have a second house in Lonavala. Is it insured? Is it insured for the things inside? Is it insured for earthquake? Just check on that, because it is an asset. It may not fetch you what you think it should, but when you're selling, you need all these things in place. So therefore do this, and that's it. Thank you.